You're still watching Prime Morning, and it's time for Prime Insight. Earlier, we did mention that we're going to discuss the infrastructure deficits in our schools, especially in the secondary schools. Now, we know that the government did introduce a free SHS system where we know that the people who are less privileged had the opportunity to also get an experience of secondary school so we can have a better Ghana. We know the government did their most by trying to build more infrastructures, but the question here is it enough? Now let's look in the year 2022 where we had a secondary school, and I want you to know the name of the secondary school. The secondary school is called Nkwanta Kumasi High. Yes, they actually, let me get the name well so that you know that we have the name right. Nyankumasi Ahenkra Secondary School in the year 2022 did petition the government to help with their infrastructure. Now, talking about this, they started this school with only 60 students 38 years ago. Currently, they have over 1,500 students in the school. Now, again, this year, during the speech and prize giving day of Ketasco Secondary School, the headmaster also petitioned the government to help with their infrastructure because it looks like they have more students coming in, but when it comes to infrastructure, they have some deficits there. Today, we are discussing how we can help with this particular issue. Because again, we look at some secondary schools where we have parents complaining that their children had admission into boarding houses, but unfortunately, the boarding houses are not enough. And so the children now have to become day students. What is the government doing about this? And of course, something can be done about it and something must be done about it. So this conversation is broader than you think. And we have a whole set of people having this discussion. We have the stakeholders here and we have Ministry of Education that will join us also via Zoom. This morning in our studio, we have the principal architect of the Cube Consulting Architects, and her name is Sylvia Labi. Of course, Sylvia, good morning.
Good morning.
Sylvia will help us, understand the, infrastructure structure with our secondary schools. If there's any way we can do something in order to, fix this problem. Then we have students also here in the studio. I have Davida Etonam Dila. She's a student. Good morning, Davida.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Great. And also I have Christabel Atimbalas. She's also a student. Good morning, Christabel.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said earlier, we'll be joined via Zoom by the PRO of Ministry of Education, that's Kwesi Kwarteng, and also we'll be joined by Afeli Bake Ababu. I hope I got his name right. I wish he was in the studio so he could pronounce his name for me correctly. But when I get him on Zoom, he will definitely do that. He is the Vice President of CHAS and also the Headmaster of Oboligatanga Secondary School. And I think they are ready for us to have a conversation. Good morning to you, gentlemen. Kindly unmute yourself for us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ababu. Is that how you pronounce your surname?
Yeah, it's Ababu.
Ababu. Okay, great. And good morning, Kwesi Kwarteng.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Kwesi. How are you too?
I'm fine.
Great. Kwesi, let's start this conversation with you before we move to the stakeholders, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Now, Kwesi, we know that you've done so well with the enrollment of students into the senior high school. And so a big congratulations to you. I know when the list came out, we kept on calling on you to make sure that, parents will have some peace with regards to their children going to school. And it has happened. However, we are back to a conversation of infrastructure deficit where some parents have come out to complain with regards to some of their children not getting accommodation as where, they had been given accommodation by the ministry saying that they had been all by GS saying that they had to be boarding students, but unfortunately, because there are no rooms, they couldn't be boarding students. Also, some schools are also petitioning the government to help, with the infrastructure. Kwesi, do you have, a database of what is actually happening currently, the schools that are struggling with infrastructure deficit? And if you do, kindly share with us.
Okay, very well. Thank you. And a very good morning to you once again and to my colleague panelists. And of course, to Ghanaians as well, who have tuned in and are watching, or for lack of better resources, are also listening to us. When it comes to the whole conversation about infrastructure, of course, directly answering the questions that you've asked, particularly taking it from for instance, the whole claim about parents whose would have had schools or have been placed in schools and they are unable to get accommodation, particularly those who, from what you said, were placed in boarding houses and are unable to get accommodation. Let me start from this angle. If you look at the placement regime, for instance, it's largely dependent on the available spaces or the declared vacancies within our schools, and then its corresponding placement that is done by the Ministry of Education or the Ghana Education Service and TVET Service. If you look at this year, for instance, a little over 700,000 vacancies were declared in the various schools, being day and boarding respectively, but largely, majority of them are boarding schools. And then what happened was that if you look at the students that were also eligible for placement, for instance, there were in excess of 500,000 students. So by and large, if you even want to do the additions and subtraction, you may still get an excess of about almost just at least, but you still have some. I want to get the right figures for you. So if you look at the declared vacancies, for instance, that is available space, you have about 705,257. If you look at the number of students that were eligible for placement, that is an excess of 555,000. So granted that you even place all these students in all the available schools, clearly there will still be some deficit or some balance. So it is not possible that maybe their students were placed in schools and maybe they are not getting accommodation, because if you look at the selection and the placement criteria, you are placed based on what you selected and the declared vacancy in the school. Its correspondence is also the residential status that has been declared. So, for instance, if Wesley Girls declares, let's say, 500 spaces for boarding students, the system cannot place more than 500 students. You see, the challenge with this whole infrastructure conversation, infrastructure debate, largely is also dependent on the kind of placement and school selection regime that we practice, where students or the secretariat or GS or the ministry is bound to place students in schools that they select, provided they get. So you may have probably the overly subscribed schools, particularly the category A schools, a lot of traffic there. But at the same time, if you go to the category B schools and the category C schools, you will have a lot of spaces, and most students probably in many cases are not even taking placements there. So on a large scale, in terms of the infrastructure conversation at the secondary school level, it is not a situation of lack of infrastructure per se, but within the broader context, it has more to do with the placement regime that we practice. But of course, by and large, we cannot also underrate or run away from the fact that if you look at the free SHS policy, it also came with some increase in enrollment, because currently we are looking at almost 1.4 million students as compared to the over 700,000 that was existed prior to the implementation of the free SHS policy. So, rationally, that surge will require that there has to be some corresponding infrastructure development. Previously we started with the tracking, the double track system. Today, the double track within the context of when within a particular year group you have two cohorts, it is not there again. It only means that by and large there has been some infrastructure development at the end of the day. But of course, just like we live at Trace, we always ask for more. If you look at the summary of senior high school infrastructure interventions that we even have from the ministry's database, we have about 1,132 projects that has been done at various in all the secondary schools. If you look at Get Fund Emergency Senior High Schools projects, for instance, around 164 has been constructed. Projects have been constructed under the secondary education improvement project, for instance, of 135. I also have some external funding from the Kuwait. Day 2 is around 33. So cumulatively, at least you have 1,132 projects that has been done in the existing schools. Of course, that is not even included. If I want to add the newly constructed STEM schools, currently we've operationalized about 5 of them. And it's all over in the news that even it was overly subscribed. So you look at school like Abu Mosu is also a freshly new built STEM senior high school. You look at STEM, Bosomtrain, STEM, Kwase, Petempe. The list can go on, 10 of them at various levels. If we look at the science resource centers, the retooling of the science laboratories across the country, and even if you come to the TVET space, previously there were just about 19 existing TVET schools under the Ministry of Education. The rest were just scattered. But today we have an excess of 212 of them, and all of them have been retooled, have been refurbished, and they are all nearly institutions. So yes, I mean, in terms of the infrastructure conversation as a country, we will still need more, we will still have to do more, but particularly at the SHS level, there has been some significant improvement that, of course, we are not at where we have to be, but definitely we are also not at where we used to be. And, and for me, that is also a plus for all of us as a country.
Okay, let me go speak with the headmaster of Bolgatanga Senior High School. Good morning once again, Mr. Babu. Mr. Babu, kindly unmute yourself for me.
To you and the listeners and Ghanaians.
Right. Mr. Babu, let's talk about... Good morning, we can hear you.
Once again, and
Okay. So, Mr. Babu, you know, currently with the enrollment, I can hear you, Mr. Babu. With the enrollment of the free SHS, you know, where we have more students being enrolled into our senior high schools, let's talk about how that has impacted, you know, our infrastructure system currently in our secondary schools.
Thank you very much. With the inception of the free senior high school, there has been increase in enrollment in the schools. Some schools now have an enrollment which is about 3 or more than they were admitting previously. Now, the increase in enrollment has actually had a turning effect on infrastructure, because the infrastructure development has not been very swift like the enrollment. And so we have more students coming into the schools to still use existing infrastructure that was meant for student numbers that were far lower than what we have now. I also want to commend the government for the intervention after the pre-senior high school introduction. There has been intervention in infrastructure development across the country in all schools. Yeah, some of these infrastructure has helped to ease the accommodation challenges in the schools, but it has not eliminated the accommodation problem as a whole. There are some schools that still have problems of accommodation for students, especially dormitories. And so the dormitories are congested and students are forced to either lie on the floor with their mattresses and all that. But that notwithstanding, yes, we are doing our best to contain the situation. And you see, because of the lack of infrastructure, we are not able to even go back to our normal system of running single track. A lot of schools are still on the transition system because they don't have infrastructure to contain. A group of students will have to stay at home, and then others will be in school. So as we speak now, those running the schools running the transition system, their second years are on break now, and then the first years have come in. After some time, the first years will also go, and then second years will come in. By the third years, because of preparation towards their exams, at least we give them more time to be in school. And so it is the second and first years that we have that alternation in the transition school. So we will still want to appeal to government to fast track the infrastructure development in the schools so that we'll phase out the transition and then get back to our normal academic calendar, so that it will ease the tension in the schools and make the work of the headmasters also efficient. Because if students are not well or properly accommodated, we ourselves, we are not comfortable, because we need to ensure that all our students are properly accommodated and are secured, so that they will be able to have the peace of mind to carry out their academic activities. Where they have come and They are having problems of accommodation. They are not well settled. It creates a lot of insecurity, and students are not safe, and their minds are not well conditioned to carry out proper academic work. So we want to appeal that at least those areas that we still have challenges of infrastructure, government should do its best to assist to ensure that we get the needed infrastructure to be able to make our teaching and learning environment more conducive for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ababu. But let me ask you this before I go back to Kwesi Kwarteng. What are some of the steps that senior high schools are taking to help bridge this gap of infrastructure deficits?
Yeah, thank you very much. Some of the steps that we have taken, some schools have been able to get their PTAs to assist in one way or the other to get some projects done for them or to complete some projects that were uncompleted. Now, apart from that, we've also tried in our own way to see how we can create additional space for students using our own ingenuity, and that is also helping. That is by ensuring that we have only bunk beds in the dormitories, and then creating temporary structures where students can put their luggage or their boxes and other things to create more room for them in the dormitory, so that when the boxes, the actual boxes and trunks are outside in a separate place, and then they have only the beds in the room, it creates enough room for them to have accommodation in the dormitories.
Okay, let me go back to Kwesi Kwarteng to have a conversation with Kwesi Kwarteng as well. Kwesi?
Yeah, I'm here.
There was something that Mr. Ababu mentioned, saying that, you know, some of the secondary schools, unfortunately, they still have to do the double track system. Does the ministry know about this?
Yeah, I mean, when I was speaking, I never, you said double track. It's not there. But if you listen to what our headmaster said, he made it very clear that he referred to it within the, the transitional batch. You know, even before the, after the introduction of the free SHS and the surge, we as a country was left with two options. The first option was to look into the face of about 100,000 students and tell them that, yes, you pass your BEC exams, but we cannot enroll you in any of our secondary schools because of lack of infrastructure. And even beyond that, there was another about 25% of those who could even enter. Every year they dropped. So the option was just to look at more than 100,000 students in their face and tell them that the country does not have a space for you. The other option was also to create an innovative way, an innovative response, and give the same level of education to everybody, just like within our constitutional provision where education is a right and is not a privilege. So we as a people were torn between the two. And we felt that introducing or bringing an innovative response in the area of double track was going to help. If you recall, the president of the land, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, is already reiterated on many occasions that his government was going to use at least 7 years to address the double track challenge. And so initially, when we started, even with the enrollment almost more than being doubled, we were still running. We began with the running of the double track system where you had green and gold at a particular time. Of course, we had even those within the first years and the second years, and in some situations, the third years. But this time around, within the context of the double track, like I stated earlier, where within a particular year group, you had two cohorts, that is non-existent. Of course, it's possible that you are going to have probably 2-year group within a school and then the other year group being in the house. Also occasioned by the fact that if you look at when they wrote their BEC, definitely at no point can all of them be in school because their calendar definitely changed. But gradually we are trying to restore their calendar to the default calendar that we knew and were used to. But at the same time, it is important that the double track which existed where at every point within that 3-year group, there were only one cohort in the school, it means it's no longer existed. And logically and reasonably, it could only mean that some way, somehow, there has been some infrastructure development that has been able to take up some of the numbers. So yes, double track, I mean, initially it was made to look like a bad thing. So when we mentioned double track, we felt that it was something bad that the government has introduced or the ministry has got. But double track was an innovative response to increase enrollment and give opportunity to everybody, at the same time maintaining and ensuring the quality. Because on the subject of whether or not even enrollment has indeed achieved the outcomes that we want all over the world, it's been proven and is documented that as enrollment increases, learning outcomes or quality reduces. But I mean, for the first time in the history of our country, for the past 8 years, it is only for the past 4 years, of which the past 3 years happens to be the free SHS students, that you've recorded a minimum of 50% passes in terms of A1 to C6 in all core subjects, which is unprecedented. So it is only in Ghana, all over the world, that even though we've had enrollment increase, we're able to still increase learning outcomes, which defiles research and what has been documented. So yes, double track within the context that we knew is not there, but it is possible that you may have 2-year groups where 1-year group is not in school, just like we are witnessing now. But like the president promised, he was going to address the infrastructure challenge or the deficit within a space of 7 years. But you see, even speaking from the broader perspective and the broader angle, it is not even only at the SHS level. You go to our universities. I have my sister in University of Ghana who is renting a private
But we understand.
outside.
We just want to concentrate on senior high schools for today. So yes, we understand
I
that
get you,
everywhere.
but I just wanted to give that broader perspective and conclude by saying that the infrastructure challenge, just like any other challenge within the educational sector, has been systemic. It is not an event. It did not come today. Of course, it's not a justification to also run away from responsibility, but it's just to acknowledge that is broader than we can imagine, and it's going to take time to address it. Like I earlier ended, I just said that definitely we are not at where we have to be as a country, but we are also definitely not at where we used to be. So by and large, there has been some significant improvement that we can be proud of as a country. All
right. Thank you so much. Don't go yet, because we'll come back to you. Let me come to the studio and have a conversation with my studio guest, Sylvia Labi, who is an architect. And of course, she has the expertise when it comes to, designing, all infrastructures. Let me put it like that. And Sylvia, when we are designing an infrastructure for a secondary school, what are some of the key elements we'll look at for secondary schools in particular?
Once you talk of a school, you have to list all that you have to provide for a school. We think of classrooms, accommodation for both students and staff. I mean, you can't just think about the students and leave out the staff, because who is going to impart the knowledge to them? We think of the supporting facilities. If you have a group of people coming together, dining facilities, an assembly hall, within the boarding houses. Usually when you are designing for a certain number of people. And that is what determines what you are providing. You can't design out of space. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So if you know the capacity of the school or the population of the school is, let's say, 600, you are designing for that. So whatever you are putting down is restricted to that. So let's take a boarding house. You are providing dormitories. How many people in the dormitory? You make provision for the beds, their trunks, their chop boxes. All these things occupy space. Now, bathrooms, washrooms. These are areas where the sanitary conditions have to be top-notch. Because you're bringing people together, you have to think of their health. Areas that can, promote infections, diseases, and so on is very important. Now, in a structure, assuming it's a two-story building. When I say two-story, this is a two-story building. You have a ground floor and a first floor. You are providing exits in case of emergencies, which can occur. What if there's a fire in the building? So your staircases should be of a certain width, well positioned. Your doorways, your openings should be of certain sizes. Otherwise, when there's a stampede, you're going to have a disaster on your hand. So you can't just go beyond the numbers you're providing for and not address all the situations. I mean, should something happen, it can be very disastrous. We pray not. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But these issues have to be addressed seriously.
Right. Let me come to the students. Of course, when the submissions were being made, I saw some of you nodding your heads with regards to some people having to sleep on the floor. Have you experienced it yet?
Yes.
You have experienced it. Let's talk about how it has, this infrastructure gap has affected your experience in secondary school. Share your experience. Let me start with you first.
From my experience.
Speak up for me.
From my experience, especially the dormitory, we are full. So some of us, we used to perch. Especially my bed, I perch with my friend. And we are easily to adapt sickness, especially when she's coughing. I can adopt it easily. So because of all this, so I signed as yet, I went home. So right now, talking to you now, I'm home. And they are in school. We are pitching. Some of us sleep on the floor.
You're home as a day student or you're home as you've taken a break?
Yeah, I signed as yet.
You're home just because you have to share a bed with somebody, is that it?
No.
Okay.
Like, I was sick.
Right.
I felt sick, that's why I went home. Yes.
What year are you?
He said,
What year?
third year.
You're in the third year.
Yes.
What about you?
For me, I'm in the second year.
Okay, share your experience with us.
Okay, when I went in the first year, I didn't sleep on the floor, but my colleagues did, especially those who reported late, because the rooms were small. Like, our number is, like, we are larger than the rooms.
Overcrowded.
Yeah, we are overcrowded. So when it happens like that, those who report late, they sleep on the floor.
So how many people are in a room? Do you have an idea?
Yes, it depends on the room size. Some of the rooms are big, some are small. So some contains 20, some 18, some
And how many
40.
beds are there?
The beds,
Okay, if you don't know, how many people were sleeping on the floor?
you can find like four, sometimes four. The rooms that I find myself in. Sometimes I see like 2 or 3 people on the floor, some perch on one bed. Yeah.
We're talking about the perching. How many people are perching? You have the experience in perching. How many people are perching in your dormitory?
A lot. We perch. We are a lot.
Almost everybody's perching, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And there are still people sleeping on the floor.
Yes, some sleeps in the corridor.
In the corridor of the school?
Yes, our school, some of us, we sleep on the corridor, especially heat. So we sleep at the corridor.
Do your house masters know that you sleep on the corridor?
I don't know for them. I don't know.
But you go and sleep on the corridor?
Yes.
What about the dining hall system? If the dormitories are full, how then do you feed?
Especially our table. We are about 16 on one table and one pantry bowl. So that 16, some people, they are regular customers. They always come to dine. And especially when rain is falling, like it used to like flood the dining hall. Yes. So sometimes we don't eat at the dining hall. We used to take food and go back to the dormitory and it produces bed bugs too. Yes. So some of us sit in the dormitory.
What about you? Are you in the same secondary school?
No.
No. So what about you? Share your experience, dining hall.
Okay, for me, the dining hall, our number, we are larger than the hall. So whenever we go for dining, the food, not everyone gets the food. Some may get, some will not. Then we leave.
So what happens to those who don't get?
Yeah, you just go to the class back.
We want to get interactive with you at home. Send in your messages. Let's talk. Let's get to hear from you what you think about this. If you have any experience, do send in your experience as well. And I will read it live on air. Of course, we are being joined by the PRO of Ministry of Education, and he's here to help us with this particular conversation and how best we can help solve the infrastructure gap. We also have Mr. Ababu, who is a vice president of CHAS and also the headmaster of Bolgatanga Secondary School. And of course, we needed an expert advice from an architect. And so we have Sylvia Labi, who is an architect, also here. And we have students who are sharing their first-hand experience with us. Quite an eye-opening conversation, I must say, because until you experience it, you might sit back and say, oh, it is not so. Let me come to you again, Kwesi Kwating, and have this conversation because the students have spoken. I'll definitely ask you a bit about it if you know that some of these students are experiencing this, and if you do, what is the government doing about it?
Let me start from this angle. On the subject matter about the health concerns that my sister raised, I think that is even more dear to my heart. Before I even proceed to comment, I will advise that she goes to a medical facility. Can I proceed?
Yes, you can proceed. Please go ahead.
I will advise that she goes to a medical facility and get a proper diagnosis of what probably is the main cause or the underlying cause of a sickness. Because for all you know, sometimes we may all conjecture and think that because I entered this room or I slept with somebody, that is what is causing this. Of course, I'm also mindful of the fact that there could be some infections that could be airborne and other things. But it is very simplistic for anyone, not necessarily her, to conclude that because I share bed with someone, by default I'm sick. After all, people have partners and they have been sleeping all along. So that's why I'm advising that she really get a medical advice rather than just concluding that maybe because she shared the beds. But of course, if indeed there is such a situation within some particular schools where students are sharing bed, students are sleeping on the floor, to the extent that I'm hearing even dining halls are being flooded, I'll be glad to know which particular school it is. Quickly, we'll go in and address whatever challenge that is there. Of course, we are not here as perfect leaders, and we are not here as leadership because there exist no problems. One of the basic characteristics of leadership is also that when there are challenges, you take responsibility of those challenges and goes in and quickly resolve them. So we will be glad that to know the name of the school, where it is, and then quickly we provide that intervention. Usually, when we were in Konongo, Massive, there were some situations that even though there were spaces within the rooms, there are some situations that you may have sometimes the chairs breaking, the beds breaking, and at some point we may be looking for the school carpenter to come and fix it. So those, isolated incidents could be possible, and I won't run away from that. Out of 1.4 million students, if, for instance, you are having 4 students, 5 students who happen to be in this situation, it is possible, depending on the circumstances. It may not be as a matter of policy failure. It may not necessarily be that somebody did not necessarily do his work. Like when you even ask whether the senior housemaster was aware, he said he doesn't think so. In such a situation, if your senior housemaster is not aware, how do they resolve the problem? Because it will even be resolved at their level. It is not every situation that even the ministry may be aware. At some point, in situations like the senior housemaster has to be aware, the head teacher has to be aware. At their blind side, they wouldn't even know that those beds or those facilities are broken up, for them to even fix it at their own level. So I also encourage them to also inform their authorities, and then whatever is supposed to be done will be done. But for me, what is most crucial is that we get to know the name of the institution, we quickly contact the head, and what has to be done, or the necessary how do you call it, interventions has to be provided if such as this. But I mean, I advise her once again to seek a proper medical advice, and not necessarily conclude that because people have made wrong diagnosis and prognosis of their diseases. So for all you know, it could be an underlying cause, and I don't know, they may be taking wrong medication. That is also very dear to my heart and important. But bottom line is that we are willing and ready to quickly go in and address whatever infrastructural concerns that it may be. But for me, the broader perspective has to always be that, yes, we may be looking at the problem, we may be looking at the challenge, but a holistic discussion of it, a dispassionate discussion of it, without making it so much sentimental, also really addresses the problem. Because by and large, from the basic level, the secondary level, up to the tertiary level, we cannot pretend that we have some systemic errors, some systemic failures from time immemorial up to date. It's just like when you are the president of the land and you promises people a job, and about 1 million people do not have a job, and you create about 700,000 jobs. The remaining 300,000 will still be talking that they've not had jobs. But it does not mean that as a president or as a leader, you've not created jobs. But you are measured on how many jobs you've been able to create. So
all
yes,
right,
there has been infrastructure development. We are not saying that but of course, I mean, initially, the whole conversation was even the lack of infrastructure within the context of there are even no buildings to accommodate them. Today, from the discussions we've had, we are even learning to know that it has more to do with beds in some instances, and not necessarily the absence of buildings or per se. But bottom line is that what is our role as leaders?
Kwesi,
I want to know the name of the school.
We'll tell you off air. Don't worry about that. We'll tell you off air. It's fine. It's not a problem. We'll definitely, because yes, we'll need you to solve it. I really have a lot of follow-up questions, but let me go to Mr. Ababu and ask Mr. Ababu with regards to what the students said as to them sleeping, some of them sleeping on the floors. And, they're saying that they don't know if their head senior housemaster knows or doesn't know about it. Now, Mr. Ababu, as a headmaster, when students are sleeping on the floors or on the corridors, are you aware?
Thank you for the question. Yes, sometimes we are aware because we go around the dormitories ourselves to find out how our students are faring. And so the sleeping on the floors happen when the beds are not sufficient. When the beds are not sufficient in the dormitories and the students are more than the number of beds, some of them sleep on the floor in the spaces in the room. And also because of the heat, especially around this time of the year, definitely the numbers are overwhelming and dormitories are crowded. And so in order to free themselves from the excessive heat, they come out with their mattresses to lie on the verandas, especially where they are caged, because some of the dormitories we have caged the verandas in such a way that they have some security that they can lie on the verandas and sleep comfortably. So they do that because of the heat. But for the sleeping on the floor in the rooms is as a result of the lack of beds. Because most of the beds are broken down and we cannot repair them. Some are not repairable. And so we appeal that the schools, we need more beds to be able to get all the students sleeping on beds. But for the purging, as they say, yes, in some schools the purging is going on, but in other schools it's not done. We allow them, we give them the opportunity to create space within the room so that they can put their mattresses on the floor and lie comfortable as individual students. So that is what is happening. We go around and we inspect those things and we see them for ourselves.
Mr. Babu, let's get to understand this, okay? Of course, you know, back in the day, our era, it was okay, you go to secondary school and you have a comfortable bed to yourself, you have a place that you are placing your chop box, you go to the dining hall and you have a seat available. There's no day that you know there's shortage of food, or sometimes you even give your food to somebody because you don't want to eat. And times have changed. How did we get here when we are seeing overcrowding of students in their rooms where they have to even share beds?
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've gotten to this stage because population has increased. The number of children going to school have also increased. We have a lot of students passing through the JSS into the senior high system. And the infrastructure, as we have said, have not been increased enough to meet the current demands of the students. And so we have these challenges there because of the deficit in infrastructure. And some of the rooms are still small. Rooms that were containing about 30 students now contain about 40 or 45 students. And you cannot get more beds into such rooms to create room for all of them to sleep. Now, apart from that, with the dining hall, yes, the dining halls were built long ago to serve a particular number of students. Now, that number has doubled or even tripled. And so the students cannot all go into the dining hall at a go. And so most of the schools, we run a shift system in the dining hall. First and second batches, one batch will go in, serve their food, quickly eat, come out, and then the second batch goes in. That's what we do in our schools. But at least for food sufficiency, yes, it's okay for them. Well, once you run their food, they eat and then come out, and then the second batch goes in. But where in schools where they don't run that shift and they ask all students to go in at once, definitely there will be food shortage because some of them may not be able to get to their tables to serve when the time is due. And so we'll still appeal because the infrastructure needs are very serious. We'll still appeal to authorities to do well to assist, either in the dormitories, either providing more dormitories or more beds, supplying the schools with more beds. And then for the dining halls, yes, if we can have expansion in our dining halls space, it will be good. Because my school, for instance, I run the shift system in the dining hall. First batch, second batch, and that is how we do it. Because we can't get all the students, over 2,500 students, going into a dining hall that is meant for maybe 1,500. It's not possible. So we have to do the shift system, and that also eats into the academic time. Because if the service is not as swift as it should be, then they will waste about 5 to 10 minutes of their instructional hours in the dining hall or walking back to the classroom. But we've also put in measures to ensure that within a time frame, students will be able to finish their meals and then get back to class to start on time. So that is what is going on. But as for the sleeping on the floor, it is being done. Some schools are sharing beds. And then the dining hall challenges are also there.
Also there. Mr. Babu, thank you so much for opening up and letting us know what is actually happening on the ground. Yes. Let me come to Sylvia. She is the architect and she knows more about how we can help, I don't know if I should call it bridge the gap or how we can solve our infrastructure deficit issues in our secondary school. Now, let's get interactive, okay? Let's hear from you. I have a message coming in. Hi, I'm a student of Akwemuman. We have an uncompleted dining hall which began with the NDC. We hope the MPP can continue. Please, let's not make educational facilities political. Rosalind, ask the headmaster why his school has accommodation facilities for ex-students, yet will indicate to the Ministry of Education that he has XY and their such number is posted to his school. Okay, I'll come back to ask him this question, okay? So let's hold on to this one. But let me come to you, Sylvia. This is quite alarming. As an architect, what can we do? What can be done to fix such issues?
I think a lot of planning has to go into place because okay, the headmaster is talking about more beds. We need more beds. Where are you going to place the beds? You place beds in a space. So you have to put up buildings, more buildings to accommodate the beds. And in design, you deal with numbers. That is what will determine the size of the space. If we are putting in 20 beds in this room, it means we will have to work out how much space the beds are going to accommodate, and then the circulation around the beds to avoid, close contact with each other, infections, and so on. We haven't even spoken about the impact of the numbers on the sewage system. You have bathrooms, you have WCs. You can dispose of wastewater easily, but how about the sewage? Is there an increase in whatever is already existing? Because these can create a lot of problems. Epidemics can break out. I'm sure some students will go into the bush. Am I lying?
You do? You use the bush? Open your mouth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have to look at the sewage systems. How about security? Lighting, street lighting in the schools. The times we're in, people sleeping on the corridors throughout the night. These students are exposed to anything, attacks. Have we addressed that? These are serious, very serious issues. You send your ward, your daughter, your son to a boarding institution, and the person finds themselves sleeping on corridors and what we saw in the pictures. It's not safe. People are not safe. Now, he's spoken about the dining facilities, the maintenance, the grounds, sanitary conditions, the environment. It's very, very important. Look, I did we handled some renovation work in one of the schools in Accra, one of the senior high schools in Accra. It's a big senior high school. And the old students have been very supportive. And that's the only reason why I can say that school is still, even that they are struggling. I noticed that there were desks on the corridors of the classrooms. The classrooms were overcrowded, and there were some people sitting along the corridors. What are corridors for? They are for circulation. If there's pandemonium in the classroom, how are they going to exit?
So now students sit on the corridors to study. Do you experience it as well in your school?
No,
not yet.
Yes.
What about you?
Yes.
You experienced some of your classmates are on the corridor.
Yes.
How do they look on the blackboard? How do they hear what the teacher is teaching?
We do that prep time. In the evening, we are mainly too crowded in the class. So some come to the corridor and study.
How many are you in a class?
We are about 52.
52?
Yes.
In one class?
Yes.
Same with you?
Yeah, we are 50. 50 in a class.
Do you have Do you have enough desks to accommodate all?
No.
So where do some people sit?
They sit on benches.
Okay. So wait, let me understand this, okay? Because we need to break it down. I know this is quite alarming. Let's get interactive this morning, okay? Do send in your messages. We are talking about infrastructure deficits in our secondary schools. We are concentrating on the secondary schools for today. Maybe another day we move to another sector, but for now it's just the senior high schools. And we are having an eye-opener conversation, I must say, because we have the Ministry of Education here, who is Kwesi Kwarteng, the PRO, and he is talking us through what can be done about it. We also have an architect, and that's in the name of Sylvia Labi, who is also here. And we have the Vice President of CHAS, Mr. Ababu. He's also here. And also we have two students who are here when they are sharing their experience with us. Let's hear from you. Let us get to understand if you have experienced it. If you have any questions as well, do send it in and we will ask it. But you are saying that 52 in a class, is it the whole Form 1 that is 52, or it is one class that is 52?
One class.
One class like this?
Yes.
And that one class, is it A or B or C?
It has, yes, A, B, C, like.
So Form 1 has how many? Let's say Form 1 home econs, how many A's to B's?
Form 1 home econs, I think 3 or 4.
So you have A, B, C.
Yes.
And in each class, you have over 50 students.
Yes.
Wow. And so you said some of them sit on benches.
Yes.
So how do they write?
They used to, like, we have a single table. So they'll put the book on it and write their notes.
So you share the table.
Yes, like some people, 2 of them will be sharing one table, sitting on one bench.
Let me come to you, Kwesi. Hello, Kwesi.
For me, yesterday, for instance, I had the opportunity to be in Labone with the minister. Very beautiful school, well organized, composed, no problem with infrastructure. And I mean, I am wondering that sometimes when, yes, we are not running away from responsibilities, but sometimes it's also proper that on screens like this, in as much as we want to resolve our problems as a people, we also tell the good stories.
Kwesi, so the thing is that we are not here to tell.
Can I proceed?
Yeah, but just let me know, let me let you understand that we are not here to condemn the Ministry of Education or anything. We are just trying as much as possible to help, eye-opener conversation, because some time ago when we had a conversation with regards to some schools not having enough classrooms, or even in the deprived areas, you did mention that sometimes we do these shows so that you can have attention on those schools and then you can fix it. So that's why we are having this conversation.
I am not really concerned about your motive, and of course I don't decide on what you show, but at least I to be fair, I can make my opinion on matters and how I feel about things. For your motive or your intention behind what you show, because it's intriguing that if you see, clearly, reasonably, you could see that the students has just parked or they were parking in. I'm not sure the pictures you show probably suggest that it means that the students are maybe sleeping outside or something. But of course, that is what you chose to show. I don't begrudge. But interestingly, when I was listening to my sister, she made a statement when you asked her about the fact that they have challenges when it comes to when they are learning. I'm still wondering if she could give me a clarity, because at one point she said, on the normal class hours, they don't have a problem, but during preps, some have to sit outside. I'm still wondering why the same classroom could accommodate them during the classes hours, but during prep hours, it cannot accommodate the same number of people.
Okay.
It's quite intriguing.
Let me let her answer to that.
Like our class, we are many.
You said you are 52?
Yes, we are 52.
Okay.
Some used to sit outside.
Okay.
Daytime, we used to perch on 2 people using one table, single table, but they'll be sitting on bench. But prep time like this, we used to share ourselves. We do single prepping. The girls will be at the other side and the boys too will be at the other side. And the boys, there are many in one class. Some people, they'll be following friends. So some of them, they'll be many in one class. So some will be sitting at the corridor. If you go to the next class, sometimes the light is not working. So some of them will be using the corridor light, to learn.
Okay.
Those are great revelations. So the problem largely has to do with the fact that people choose the rooms that they, in some cases, people choose the rooms that they want to prep, and not necessarily the absence of rooms. Again, issues of lighting, which I don't think is even beyond the head teachers level. And these are instances where head teachers, I trust them that they are going to demonstrate leadership.
Kwesi, if we'll get it so we understand it, beginning she said there are 52 in the class. She also mentioned that as they are in the class, some of them have to perch on one desk when there's a teacher in class teaching. So there's already an issue when it comes to the morning class session before we move to the prep time where they move out. Because they move out prep time because there's no teacher teaching, so now they can sit outside and study. But when it comes to being in the class, 52 students, some have to sit on benches and use some people's tables to write. And so if we can tackle that one, then we can move to,
I heard that one. Neither am I going to run away from that aspect, but except to say that at the first instance, before I came in to make my remarks, when you asked her, she said the only challenge they had was during prep time. That's how come I asked about that, of which she came in with that subsequent submission. But for me, by and large, like I indicated, first of all, one thing that is still lacking is the fact that we still do not know that school. I'm sure we are more interested in painting that gloomy picture as though everything has fallen apart, but we are not interested in solving it. I speak for the Ministry of Education. At the end of the day, we can talk about the challenges and paint whatever picture that we want to paint. We may make it so gloomy, so darker, and how we may want to paint it. At the end of the day, it still points to one thing, whether or not there are challenges. And indeed, we are not running away from the challenges. But of course, I feel that some of the challenges that has been listed here could be resolved with innovative leadership. For instance, when the head teacher said, headmaster said, in some schools, they may have to run shift with regards to, for instance, their dining hall facilities. I personally, let me issue a disclaimer here that this may not necessarily be the position of the Ministry of Education by myself. But I don't see the reason why, for instance, if students have to go for dining, first years cannot go for, let's say, 1 o'clock, then the remaining students will be in classroom, maybe 1:15, other people also go, 2:50, other people also go. I don't personally see how this is a problem. These are innovative way that we can use to address the basic challenges. Obviously, I gave you a certain history that as a country we had a certain choice. The choice was to look into about more than 100,000 students, their face, and tell them that we are going to deny you education up till now. Today, with the institution or the introduction of the free SHS, what is the enrollment level now? It's more than double. What essentially it meant was that we were going to deny over 700,000 students opportunity to education. So obviously, as soon as you've taken, the hard way, nobody's saying that you won't get challenges. We are obviously going to get challenges.
Yeah.
But how is painted and made to look, for me, I'm not worried about it. But my concern is that, well, we may have those isolated incidents of those basic challenges with regards to infrastructure. But for me, what is more mind-boggling and intriguing is that, you see, if you look at the placement regime, like I earlier on indicated, headmasters declare vacancies based on the available spaces with regards to boarding and day. So I'm still wondering why you could declare that you can take, for instance, 500 boarding students, whilst you know very well that there are no spaces or there are no beds for them. It's just mind-boggling. And maybe somehow we need to be blunt and ask those very strong questions, because you are the headmaster of the institution. You know the number of vacancies that you are supposed to take.
With what you just said, a message came in with regards to that, asking the headmaster why they actually give, Ministry of Education that they have the vacancy, and then after they come back saying that, we don't have the space.
That's why maybe our headmaster could help us to.
Yeah, I need to go to him though.
If you look at the placement regime, for instance, it is not as though everybody is entitled by hook or crook to any school that he or she selects. Because at the end of the day, you are still competing with other students based on certain variables, such as your residential status, the program choice, and of course, your grade and the raw score and other things. So imagine a school like Presec Legon. If you don't have facilities to accommodate boarding students, why should the headmaster declare that there are more facilities and then the GES or CSS Secretary should send more students? At the same time, probably if you go to our Waremai or a man will have enough spaces where students could be accommodated. For me, ultimately, irrespective of who did something right or who ought to have done better, I mean, it still rests on the Ministry of Education to take ultimate responsibility of everything. But look,
Kwesi, let me ask the headmaster for you, okay? Because I need the headmaster.
I am ending.
Okay.
I am ending. The assurance is that we are there to fix problems.
Yeah.
We are not there to complain about problems. I am very happy about the eye-opener. I mean, the basic challenges that our sisters have told us. I'm also glad when they also let us know the names of the schools so that quickly an intervention will be sent there. And we take full responsibility and assure all Ghanaians that wherever there are challenges, we will go in and resolve them. We are not oblivious of the fact that there could be challenges anywhere. But on a scale of balance, if you have 1.4 million students, of course, for instance, you spoke about the fees, the feeding, and you have, let's say, 100, 200, or 50, or 30, or 10 students complaining about, for instance, the quality or the quantity of feeding. Yes, it's a concern, but it is not a situation of a general problem. So, I mean, people's subjective preferences may even come in terms of even giving account of how they feel about, I mean, the offers that they have in the various schools. But by and large, we take responsibility for all of them. And as a ministry where there are challenges, we will go in and resolve those challenges.
Okay, Kwesi, thank you so much. Let me speak with Mr. Ababu to find out why they give a certain number to the ministry and later they say the place is full. Mr. Ababu. Hello?
Thank you very much. Yeah, hello.
Yes, we can hear
me.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, at the end of every year, we are asked to declare vacancies for first-year students. And the vacancy declarations are always based on the available spaces in the dormitories and then classrooms. And so we do that. Like if, for instance, in the year, my final year students are about 1,000, and then we know that 1,000 students are moving out. And so naturally, there will be spaces for 1,000 students. But sometimes we don't even declare the whole 1,000. We declare a vacancy that would give us enough room to be able to accommodate the students. And so the admissions are based on the vacancy, the available spaces in the dormitories and then in the classrooms. But we shouldn't also forget of the fact that there is wear and tear. And at every stage, beds and furniture get broken. And so when that happens, you know that 1,000 students are going out. But at the time that they are asking for the declaration of the vacancies, we have not taken an audit of the number of beds or furniture that have been broken. So we'll declare the vacancy, and when the time comes and we take those things, we try to maintain the broken ones to be able to meet the demands of our admission quotas. So the issue is that we don't just declare vacancies based on our own instance, but we look at the existing facilities that we have and what is there and what will be comfortable for the students. But sometimes when the students also come in, yeah, we can declare the beds will be there. We are aware of the beds, we are aware of the furniture. But when they come in, because of usage, within the period of the year, some get broken. And so we go back to the issue of shortages in number of beds and then furniture for them in the classrooms and then their dormitories. And so the declaration, we don't unilaterally declare, but we look at everything that is available in the school and the number of students that we can take. But it will interest you to know that sometimes when we even declare the vacancies, because of the number, the volume of students who have passed out from JSS, some schools are asked to find out if they can increase the number of vacancies that were declared. And you are put in a fix. Yes, sometimes we do small adjustments, but we do that with the intent that maybe when those who will be placed, not all of them will come. And so when all don't come, then we are able to fit into the system.
Okay,
so
Mr.
that
Babu.
is what happens in the schools.
Okay, Mr. Babu, I have so many messages here.
Yeah.
So many.
Okay.
Let me read some of the messages out. Rosalind, the PRO said there are over 150,000 excess accommodations in the boarding schools in Ghana. How is it that the headmaster cannot put a ceiling on the number of students to accept into their schools to match with the facilities currently in the school? Is it for personal gain? Okay. I'll come to you, Mr. Babu. Let me read more messages. Good morning. Please, I'm a teacher in one of the SHS in Techima North District, Bono East. Please, our students are going through hell in relation to their feeding. The food staff is woefully inadequate. We are starving our students. Send your reporters there, Techima North, and let them find out. Thanks. Okay, we'll see what we can do about that. Warm greetings to you. Very wonderful discussion. Number one, is it good we get all students to educated as this government is doing? Two, but I want to reiterate that there is no infrastructure gap or deficit whatsoever. Okay. Three, if there is, then this is mainly cause the heads greater percent, teachers greater percent, and government officials less, who call some schools to get their relatives placed. Okay. Four, let's listen to what Ministry of Education, PRO, said very well. And I quote, the ministry, that's GES, do not just place students in any school anyhow. Number five, they do these based on the vacancies declared in various schools' heads and its management. Number six, they quoted over 700,000 vacancies were declared, and these were declared by the various schools based on the infrastructure capabilities. Why then should there be deficits? Kwachi is right in this. There's a lot to do, Kwachi. Okay. More coming in. Good morning, dear. In Addis Ababa College, there are 90 in science class. Hey. Wow. Kwesi, I know you definitely make an inquiry to this. So we'll find out.
I need to confirm that obviously, I mean, you don't also know the size of the class. In the universities,
okay.
There are situations where you have 3,000 people in one hall, so it depends on the size of the class.
That's true. Okay. All right. Another one from Tafo. Students are sitting on plastic chairs and writing on stools in my school. So let the man, Kwesi, understand that he's just trying to defend the indefensible. Our leaders, okay. The Speaker of GES should understand that the situation is gloomy and darker. They should rise up and save the Ghanaian child. All right. We know that they are doing a lot, we must say, because even free SHS is not easy. To put anybody in school for free is not easy. So we know that the ministry is doing a lot. Please ask him about the yearly huge prospectus, and that is preventing poor students not being able to attend school. Okay, we are discussing the infrastructure deficit for today. Mr. Watting must accept that the system is a flop. For that, I think that's your opinion. No. Good morning, madam. Please, what the student said is true. In my school, we have classes up to 60 and some even above. As for the furniture issue, some even sit on the floor. Okay, we wish to know the school so that Kwesi can definitely address this issue in the near future. Come to Yeji Senior High Technical School. We are using science lab as class. Over 80 students in same class. No ICT lab in this modern age of STEM. Most students sleep in the corridors of the dormitories. Some men are students of Yeji SHS. I know Kwesi will definitely look into that as well because they are here to fix the issues. Good morning. Please, I'm Ibrahim Fusaini inside Maule. Is it Maluwe? All right, madam, I attend Tuna Senior High School in Sola, Tuna Kalba in the Savannah region. We used to be 60 students in a class, please. Okay, but is the class big enough to accommodate all 60? I'm Daniel from Bosso Senior High Technical School. We are 87 in one class. Okay. All right. Let me do the last message. I know there are so many messages coming in. I can't read all, but I'll try to do the last one so we take it from there. Please, please, them that they are saying that they are 30 and those things in the classroom is just a small thing. My school, we are 60 in one class, and in the dorm, we are 20 sleeping on the floor. What school is it? If we get to know, Kwesi will definitely tackle this issue. I can't read every message. I still have more messages coming in, but definitely Kwesi has promised to fix this issue. So Kwesi, let's give hope to the people.
Yes, like I earlier indicated, the assurance is that those challenges that has been outlined, particularly when we get to know the names of those institutions. Of course, the Ghana Education Service has its own internal report mechanism that they're able to identify some of these things and address them. But of course, as a ministry, especially in providing rapid interventions, such like a discussion on platforms like this quickly, we get to know of such school, and then we go in and resolve it. So the assurance is that, yes, there may be challenges, but duty as leadership, like I earlier indicated, is to take or own up to responsibilities and then address those challenges swiftly, rapidly, and then as soon as possible that we are able to. Of course, like I indicated earlier, though not the justification, most of the challenges that we have within the education sector is systemic. It is not the days or year-old challenges. Most of them will continue to be there, but our resolve as leadership is to continue to address them and heads on. Most of the challenges, especially regarding infrastructure, I indicated that we have about 1,113 projects that has been done at the various levels within the country. If we look at, for instance, the new STEM school that has also sprung up, 5 has been operationalized. It's all as to the infrastructure, conversation that we are having. But by and large, there are still challenges that we are unable to overlook, challenges of the same infrastructure, challenges that borders on, for instance, furniture, challenges that borders on beds. But our resolve and assurance that we are giving to parents is that we will quickly intervene with those peculiar and isolated cases and then go and resolve them.
Okay.
Like indicated, definitely, we as a people, when it comes to education landscape and whatever challenges that we have, we definitely are not where we have to be. But like I stated earlier, definitely, if we look back to, we are also not at where we used to be. So yes, we have to look at those challenges, like you brought the school of shame, but there were also schools of fame. So in as much as we look at, for instance, these basic challenges, yesterday when I also went to Labonia, I was so proud of the gains that we've chalked as a country. But assurance, once again, is that we'll transform every school just like we've transformed the existing
we do
ones.
trust you. What we want to do is to have a forum one day, probably go to one of the secondary schools and have a forum and see how
I'll go with you.
Thank you so much. Kwesi, have a good day and thank you for joining us this morning. All right, so let me come to the studio. Sylvia is still here. Sylvia, let's wrap up the conversation with what exactly we can do now, because as you know, we know things are expensive. We have modern technology. What is a modern technology we can use to help improve on the senior high school infrastructure system?
Well, what I can say is a lot of planning has to come into place. Should we plan that, let's say, every year we'll provide 2-3 unit classroom block to support each school? Unfortunately, the schools have different populations, so it has to be commensurate. Now, funds have to be set up outside of what government is providing. It's obvious the government can't do it all. Much as it's free, is it free? The support has to be there. So we have to look at some kind of funding to be set up, because infrastructure costs money, whether we like it or not. And if you are providing infrastructure, there's something called structural integrity. If this building is not well designed structurally, it can collapse. You are talking of numbers. There's a limit to what a building can take. If a building is, let's say, a dormitory block is designed to take 50 students when it was being designed, and later on you find 100 students in it, That's a compromise on the structural integrity because you introduce more load on the structural elements. What we call the structural elements are like the floor slab, the columns. What is holding the building? It's like your body. There's a skeleton that is holding you. When there's something wrong with your skeleton, you may not even be able to walk or sit. So we have to be very careful and make sure we provide sound structures so that we don't compromise on the lives
of these young ones. Sylvia, thank you so much for being here today. We are super grateful. And to you, the students, very grateful that you also made it here. And we wish you a bright future. Okay? Thank you so much for being here. I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Ababu. Mr. Ababu, if you're still on, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too for inviting me for your program. I'm very grateful.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Right, so today we've been discussing the infrastructure deficit in our senior high schools, and of course we've been promised that a lot will be done by the PRO of Ministry of Education, that's Kwesi Kwarteng. Kwesi, thank you so much for giving us hope again that things are going to get better. We had a conversation with Sylvia Labi, who is an architect. She's a principal architect with a Cube Consulting Architect. Also, Mr. Ababu, who is the Vice President of CHAS and also the Headmaster of Bolgatanga Senior High School. And I had two students here as well. Davida Etonam Jila, who is a student, and Christabel Atembelas, who is also a student. Thank you so much for joining us.